Welcome back, y'all.
Every time's like the first time. I forget, and then it happens again. It's welcome back, y'all.
I really hope I'm not offending anyone with that. It's just
I'm from the South. It's okay. I say it's all right.
Okay, great. Yeah.
We have a Southerner on the show, so it's all right. I'll give you a pass.
Great. Okay.
This is great. No, we gotta make merch. That's our next. Welcome back, y'all.
Yeah.
Impact Minded merch.
Yep.
Let us know if you're interested.
We already have a name for our merch line. You guys just won't even be able to handle it when it releases. It's so good. It's a whole brand.
Wait for the drop.
Yeah. Taylor and I created the whole line over a great glass of wine at a Mercantile here in Denver. It was a great moment.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's coming.
Our fashion line was great.
Yeah.
It's going to happen one day.
It's on its way. Maybe this year. We'll see.
This is it. We'll start it with our first merch drop. Welcome back, y'all.
Welcome back, y'all. Well, more on that later. Today, we're going to be talking about the leadership fear no one wants to talk about. And in effort to start that conversation, I have a question for you, Taylor.
Let's do it.
All right. So my question is, who do you work best around? Like, who do you do your best work around and why?
Well, you, obviously, Christine Hernandez. That's a great question. I mean, I think the environments that I thrive in are ones I like to be around people that that are really good at coming up with new ideas. And then the other piece of that is I like to be around people, I work best around people that are excited to execute. And what I mean by that is why are you laughing?
It's just like two ways you could like describe me, like always have ideas and excited to execute. Sorry, it just was funny. I'm like, oh, I could see that. Maybe I am your favorite person to go with. Okay, great. Sorry, go on. You were going into something deep and I interrupted you.
There's a piece that like execution is important to me, and I think it's easy to have ideas, in a sense, right? And specifically, if you're in new businesses or businesses that are high growth or growing, ideas are flowing, and lots of people have ideas. I would say that in my experience, it is much more rare for people to have the ability to understand what's required to execute on those ideas. And so I like to be around people that have really good ideas or have ideas, and we can decide which ones stick, but then also recognize and are able to see very clearly the runway necessary to see those things through. Because I think, and that is a strength of mine. So I don't expect everyone to be as detail oriented as I am and like process driven, but I think I do. Yeah, I like to be around people, and I work best with people that like are able to see that through. And I think that's a bit more of a rare strength. Anybody can have ideas, but what is the saying? Ideas without execution, something or another.
Are just dreams.
There you go. Yeah. I like dreams, but I like to get shit done. So execution. Good question. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and it kicks us off with our conversation today. So today we're going to be talking about the cost of keeping the wrong people. And that is the leadership fear no one wants to talk about. And it's It's honestly like a really challenging piece. Like it's something that is really hard, especially when you're a company that believes on working with people through their stuff. And I think that's something that like you and I both have wrestled with is it's like when do you know that it's just like not working? When do you know it's the wrong fit? Um because it really does cost us our best people, and that was where my question came from is it's like no one really wants to work around people who are unmotivated and complaining, and like there's just these people in our organizations that sometimes I've noticed that they might even be sometimes your highest producers, but they might be the wrong fit for the team and costing you more across the boards because they're actually not the right fit. And so we lose our best people when we keep the wrong people. And so I want to hop into that conversation today because honestly, it's one that I've really struggled with. I struggle with this and knowing when the right time is to let people go because I'm someone who will like, I will die on the hill of your growth. Like I want to see people thrive. I want to you watched the wrestle and I'm like I will just give all of my time. I just want to see people in their zone and you do too. Like we've seen it on both sides. But it's really challenging because if that person is not thriving in our business and in the organization, it actually puts a lot of stress on the rest of the team. And so it can be really challenging. And the rest of the team like isn't getting the same attention. So all of a sudden, I'm giving one person all of my attention and trying to get this person up to speed and really get them in their zone. And everyone else kind of gets like the brunt of that. And I think it's been I've made the wrong decision many times in like in all of our companies. I've done it wrong. So let's talk about how not to do it wrong and how to do it right and like what's really worked and how we make this shift because it's one that like we don't like to face head on. I would say I'm just like I'll just keep working and trying to get them there. It's fine.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind, and maybe a good place to check ourselves, collectively, is where that drive is coming from. And you said it early on. Is it coming from fear and scarcity, or is it coming from a real interest in that individual's growth? And I think it's a pretty quick shift into, yes, I'm excited to see this person grow. Yes, I'm committed to them. And I know that I've made this mistake of just, literally hanging on to someone because of the work required to get someone to replace them. You're just like, oh, it's easier to just put up with this bullshit than it is to find someone else and the interviews and the onboarding. And I got to get them up to speed. And I get it. Like it's legwork, but that is not the reason to keep someone on. And I have certainly done that before, which it pains me to say, but when when you're in the thick of it and you got a bunch of stuff going on, you just, whatever. This is better than trying to do something else right now. So there's a bit of a bandwidth issue too, I think, like on top of, or in addition to scarcity and fear. Also, if you're, there's certainly a pervasive narrative right now that, no one wants to work, you can't hire, there's no good people. We've talked about that a great deal on this podcast. That narrative we don't believe is true or correct. But if that has been your experience or you're holding on to people that are not a fit because of that, then that's a good way to check yourself too. And so I think there's I'll like the third piece of that, just from my own personal experience, is I always say like, you can only meet people or give as much as they're willing to give. So I can only like you said, and you and I are both are, whether it can be a strength or it can be a very real weakness where you and I want so badly to see people excel and reach their full potential. I can only meet them to the extent that they're willing to kind of meet me, right? So if they're just not showing up, I can't want it worse than they want it. And that's another place that I've found to check myself is when I just continually see that I'm the one showing up for them and they're not showing up for themselves. Caveat to that is that they have to have like all of the resources and support and opportunity to excel. So you have to first create an environment where they can excel. That's our responsibility as leaders. If we've checked that box, then if I care about it more than they do consistently, then that's a problem too. So I think there's just a bit of a recognition, like a high level of why is this happening? Are there some things that maybe I can change or need to check myself, or some behaviors that are patterns? And I think it is a muscle to be worked. And then we can start to even get into some specifics, because then, it also is a function of, as your team grows, there might be, then you need to recognize who these people are before they become a problem. Really, like it does. There's a very real cost to these people. So once we kind of high level, what's that looked like for you, or like break that down? How do we start to recognize what this actually looks like on the ground inside of our businesses? And then then what do we do about it? Or how do we find that balance of like support versus it's not the right fit?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we look at the studies, 74% of employees say that they're working with toxic colleagues that make them less engaged. And so that is like those stats are really high. And I think we all can see ourselves in that. Like, I think one of the biggest indicators that I have found is how I'm showing up with certain people. Like, have you ever noticed that just like certain people, like, they're going to be late on calls? So, like, maybe you're not going to be as on time. Like, you're like always on time, right? But like, there is that like moment where you're like, oh, well, I'm just not going to like, I find myself, I don't know if you're guilty of it too, but I find myself like not showing up the same like I typically would. Like, there's just different energy that I show up with certain people, and then there's other energy, and I like, it's a cognitive catch. I have to like cognitively think about it, and I'll catch myself like, why am I showing up this way? Like, this is actually inauthentic to who I am and how I want to show up. And I think it's just a lot of times we're like, well, what's the problem in our culture? Why do we have this like morale drop? And why are these things happening? We're not hitting our goals. But I think it's like the quiet quitting. That is it quiet, or is it that we're just not actually looking for it? Like, there's a piece of me that thinks about it. I'm like, it's not at like, no one's saying anything, but it's actually not quiet because the signs are all on the wall. And I think we have to we have to have a baseline of how we want our company to look like. Or it's not even how, it's how our company runs when we're all engaged and when things are really good. There's like this baseline that I can see when things are just working. And we have like, I think on our team, like everyone kind of just gets quiet and tucks away when we're like in a state of this. And I don't think for us, it hasn't ever been like somebody's, because somebody's not doing their stuff. But in other companies that we've both owned, like that has been the thing, right? Like, where there's just someone who is really putting a lot of pressure, and we're tolerating it. And so I think it's being connected to what that baseline is and understanding what is your culture's baseline. And if you don't know how to break that down, that's absolutely what we do for companies, is create that baseline of what you look like at your best. Like, and not like tomorrow's best, like your true best. You've seen it before. And then once we have an understanding of that, it's really fast to catch when we're off, because all of a sudden we have this norm, we have this standard that we're living in. And so I think that that's first and foremost, is just like, what does your company feel and look like? What does the culture feel and look like when you're running at your best. And then from there, then we know when it exceeds that, and we know when it drops. And then I think it's just catching ourselves. My biggest indicator is myself. Like I said, I'm like, oh, I'm showing up weird. This is not incongruent. This is incongruent with myself. So that, I think that has been my biggest piece of awareness when I'm showing up outside of my norm, and how I really want to show up, then I catch it really quickly.
Yeah. I think that's a great indicator. I mean, I think it does start with us and just recognizing those cues. And I think we were doing some research for this, and I thought it might be helpful just to go through some things that some reasons why leaders hold on too long, because I want people to hear like what you and I are both saying is it really like it is a trend, it is something that can be recognized, and it does start with us, and it is a problem that can be solved, and it's something that can be righted in our companies, right? Like the ship can be turned around. It doesn't have to be that we always have this kind of, one person or a couple of people or a handful that are the people that are toxic in our culture. That's like crazy, that statistic. Over 70% people say that like there's toxic or toxicity in the workplace. I mean, that's like that's staggering, right? That 70 some odd percent of people are just going to work and just at face value just admit like, yeah, like I'm just dealing with this, right? So our goal here, what I'm driving at, is that it is something that we don't have to just put up with. I think that we have just decided that this is a part of our culture, that there's always going to be some people that are problematic. But I'm going to list these things off, and I want you, those listening, just do you hear yourself or any narrative that you have dealt with in these areas? So few reasons why leaders hold on for too long to these individuals that are toxic or are not a good fit. One, like we said, is fear of hiring again. So what if I can't find someone better, right? I think that's a big one. Again, that is not how we should make decisions. There's a ton of people who are ready and willing and able to do great work. They're in alignment with your culture. You do have to understand what that culture is. So like you were saying, Christine, like if that baseline isn't clear, that could be part of the reason that this is a recurring theme, is that you don't know what you're hiring against, right? So you're going to be frustrated if you don't understand what that baseline looks like. Next one is emotional ties. So they've been here so long, I feel bad. Totally. I get that. But again, I think there's a piece of this too that, as we mature as leaders, as we mature as a company, this has happened to both of us. And this is brutal. We've both been through this. So I want to recognize how hard it is. But there are people that do not grow with the culture of your company. And recognizing that is super important, because those individuals, if and when they're clinging on to the way things used to be, and you're really driving to create different environments, new opportunities, the team's growing, there's new, like those people that are stuck in the past are not going to be the right fit. And that's hard. Like we know these people well, we know their lives, their families, but if it's not a good fit, we can't, then it's not a good fit. We need to make some decisions. So third one is avoiding conflict. So I just don't want to deal with the fallout. I think this is a place it's easy to arrive at, right? Like we were talking about, you're busy, things are going on, just like, it's just going to be a whole thing for any number of reasons. Conflict is certainly a part of that. Hard conversations are a part of leadership. Hard conversations don't have to be filled with conflict either. There is a way to address and communicate effectively so that conversations like this can be from a place of values and not from a place of conflict. That's another thing that we work on in great detail with the folks that we work with. So if conflict is something that is a recurring theme, that does not have to be a part of your culture. And then lastly, just short-term thinking. So it's just easier to keep them from now. I said this earlier. I've fallen into that trap. You have to think about the long-term benefits of the culture that you're building. What do you want to accomplish? What's the mission, vision? How do each of these individuals help you build that legacy? And the kind of reality check and solution for all four of those things is the fact of the matter is the longer you wait, the harder it gets, more toxic, the more integrated and ingratiated into the culture that individual or those individuals is going to be. It's going to be harder to extract them. And if you're protecting the wrong person, you're hurting the right people. Right. So when we adapt and mold our cultures to fit or include these people that are not in alignment, it's those people that are part of the 74%. They're the ones interacting. Right. So again, this is a pervasive issue. We have the statistics to say, and that statistic I think was from MIT. Like these are wide reaching data points that say that most of the people are being forced to interact with people that are not a fit, and it's impacting their ability to do their work. So there is a dramatic and drastic effect on these people so we might think that like, oh, I'm protecting myself for this person. Like the ripple effect is massive. So this one person now is negatively impacting literally everyone else in your company.
Well, and on the flip side, to that point, on the flip side, there's lots of research we've looked at from being in proximity to a high achiever, right? So if you have the right people and you have high achievers on the team, you actually get the opposite, effect. You get when we have high achievers and we have those people in our environment, we get complete opposite results. And so this is really important. So let's talk about how, like, okay, so you're in the place where you probably have some of this going on in your organization. Maybe you're personally feeling it. How do we make the tough calls? Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think when we look at this and we're like, maybe we're wavering, we're like, is this person the right person? Is this person the wrong person? Do I need to make a tough call? One of the things that I think has helped us and that we've really used is really looking at this from two places. Does this person bring energy, or does this person drain energy from me, the team, resources? And then the second question we ask is, would you be excited to rehire them? And that is something that has been like so confronting. I'm like, oof, like, would we rehire this person right now? And that is that, like, you can't walk away without a clear answer, because if the answer isn't hell yes, then it is no. And if you have that, then you got to address that and you got to do it fast. So is there anything else, Taylor, that you feel like has helped us make the tough calls and really shift this? And not saying you have to let this person go, but it has to be addressed, right? And we have to look at this critically and address this information.
Yeah, the like you said, would you hire them again is probably really like the fundamental question. Like if you ask yourself that and you're honest, you have a really clear answer. And that's probably the best check for, should I continue to lean in and support this individual? Because if the answer is yes to that question, then the answer would be yes to like, okay, then we just need to create an environment where this person can thrive. They need leadership, they need support, they need tools, whatever. The answer is no, then it's no, right? Like it's so clear cut and dry. The other piece that I think about, or I believe is important, is really that leadership requires a great deal of courage. And you and I have talked a lot about, and we've done lots of speaking engagements around nice versus kind. And that I think a lot of this comes from trying to be nice to people, but really leadership is not about being nice. It's about doing what's right for your team, right? And that definition is that nice is kind of this surface level response that we have to try to protect people, and being kind is to be truly empathetic and engaged in what's best for that individual, for the best possible outcome. And when we have misalignment, we have to understand that that person is not happy either. So the best thing that we can do for them is to help them recognize what a true culture fit looks like. It is not inside of our organization, and to have them go out with the skills and tools and knowledge to find the fit that's right for them. So that's where we can also get rid of or diminish the conflict piece, is in how we address that conversation to begin with. And it's truly a gift. If you help them see why there's not alignment, why the values aren't there, and then they can go find it, right? And that's great. Like our primary responsibility as leaders is to give that person the tools, skills, and relationships they need to, if and when they move on from our organizations, they're better than when they found us, right? Yeah. And then to create an environment that's so great that the hope is that they don't leave. But if and when they do, that they're better than when they got to us. So I think, again, just like thinking about it from just kind of like a courage perspective, knowing what true leadership requires, having the clarity and courage to step into that leadership role or to a leadership role, and really be the person that the individuals on your team need, and trust that removing the wrong people makes space for the right ones. It cannot be overstated that when these people, it creates a ceiling. People can only rise to kind of the lowest common denominator, right? And these toxic individuals, people that are not the right fit, are literally holding down the people that are there and ready to rise to the occasion. But your team is really only as strong as kind of the weakest link. And that's a bit of a harsh reality. And it's kind of strong language, but yeah, I mean, it's also purposeful language. I think that's a reality that we need to face up against or recognize. And the hope is that by recognizing that reality, it pushes us to take action, because again, there is a shitload of people that are just dealing with toxic environments, and that there's a very real cost there. And you and I have done a bunch of research, like the dollar amount. I mean, I'm not gonna I forget the exact numbers, but billions and billions of dollars in terms of the U.S. workforce and marketplace that it's costing to not make these decisions around culture, and leadership and alignment, and actually giving people a place to thrive.
Well, and you only get the thing, we could talk for literally hours on all the stats and go into depth on the science behind what it's costing organizations. It is astronomical. But the bigger thing for me is you only get one life. And as someone who has had a terminal condition, I'm like, why are we wasting our lives in companies we're not excited, or doing work we're not excited about? You only get one life, and we spend 80% of our lives at work. Make it worth it. Make it something you're excited to do. And I own a carpet cleaning company. There's nothing sexy about that. It is a gross industry. But I'm excited about the people we get to help. If you're not doing something, I'm not saying you have to go save the world or just wake up. I don't wake up every day just so excited, but I am excited to do the work that we do because I love helping the people that we get to help and solving the problems. We're designed to solve problems. And if you don't feel like you're solving problems that matter, then you probably could go do something that's more worth your time, because you matter. And I believe that we should do work that matters. And that's the piece that I'm like, I just can't not do the hard things and have the conversations, because if I don't, then it means that I'm holding on to someone who probably could make a really big impact somewhere else, but I'm just too comfortable and not willing to have the tough conversations and make the tough calls. And that's more about my comfort than it is about their growth. And that's true leadership. And so I know this stuff is hard. I super struggle with this conversation, but I just want to encourage everyone to look at that and really think what is it costing you and what is it costing them if you hold on to them for another 6 months? What's going to be the overall impact on everyone involved if you keep at this rate? If someone has that energy that they're draining everyone else's energy, then what is it going to cost everyone involved? And maybe they could be changing the world or impacting another organization in a really big way. Do them the favor and have the hard conversation, and do the rest of your team the favor so you can get someone who adds value instead of draining energy. We could talk on this all day. This is such a big conversation and we're super passionate about it. But if you guys have questions about this, or if you're in Denver and you want to have more conversations about this, you're like, oh my gosh, this resonates so much. We would love to see you at our monthly event, the Service Hub Network. We are going to be having these types of conversations. We're going to be bringing you real solutions. We're going to be in a room with other business owners, other leaders that are struggling with the hiring crisis that our society has right now. So if you are feeling the pressures of how to attract, retain, and grow your team, we are going to be in Denver every single month, the fourth Thursday of every single month. So it's coming up here this week, I guess, or this will post right after. So it'll be March. We can see you in March. But yeah, we will see you in Denver at Tradecraft Industries, and we'd love for you to join us.
Yeah, because we're so passionate about this, and it's something that we know is solvable because we do it, we help organizations do it every day. We've started this free in-person networking group just to provide a place for resources, different ways of thinking. Like you said, it's the fourth Thursday of every month. We have one in February, our one in March. You can find all of the details in the show notes. So if you're in Denver, that's going to be a really great in-person opportunity to get that support, different ways of thinking. You and I will both be there facilitating conversations around that, which I'm super excited about. So if you are not in Denver, you need other support, we are always here to help. You can find us at impactinitiative.network. Reach out to us there. Let us know your wins, what you're struggling with. We'd love to be a part of the conversation and truly just be there for support and helping you navigate all of the different nuances of leadership. So again, that's impactinitiative.network. And until then, we'll see you next time on Impact Minded.